Hey everybody, Dave Bazanko here. I'm going to answer a question today that a lot of people have asked me before, and I'll just try to summarize this in 10 minutes or less. But this is the story about how I became an Ironman triathlete. And have you ever wondered, like if you've ever seen this on TV and asked yourself, how the heck does somebody ever do something like that or become an Ironman triathlete? Well, I was just like you 18 years ago when I turned 40, and here's my story. When I was 40, I was pretty much a couch potato. I was a dad who had two jobs. I ran my own company, an import marketing company. I was working at an automotive parts manufacturer on three shifts, meaning that I was working days, afternoons, midnights, and rotating through those three things. And I was burning the candle at both ends. I had two young kids at home. I was trying to be that super dad who could play with their kids, and at the same time, provide for my family and manage all that work. And I was the type of dad who also, because of all of that, was not eating well, was completely sleep deprived. And some days when I was watching my daughter, I would wake up and I would have curlers in my hair because in the effort to start playing with my daughter, I would actually fall asleep on the floor and I would become the big Barbie doll that she could put rolling pins into the person's hair. So I woke up with butterfly clips and rolling pins, you name it. It was in my hair because, unfortunately, sometimes I fell asleep while I was playing with my 2-year-old daughter. That was not the person who I aspired to be. That was not being present in my kid's life. Something had to change. I was living a life no better or worse than anybody else, and nobody was batting an eye. Everybody was actually expecting me to kind of go down the road I was going. I had gained 40 pounds. I was not in good shape, and it was a recipe for disaster. Now, after a heart scare at around the age of 40, it was actually a stress-induced heart issue based on all the stressors that were going on in my life and not paying attention to my health and well-being at all. I remember the doctor came in after he did all the tests. He said, "Dave, you didn't have a heart attack today, but the good news is you didn't have a heart attack. The bad news is you're awfully close. And I'm going to give you two choices. You can either go on heart and cholesterol medication for the rest of your life, or you can lose some weight and get in shape. The choice is yours." And he knew or thought that because most people, 99.9% of people choose the pills, he thought that was going to be the end of the story. He didn't realize kind of who he was dealing with, and neither did I. I'm the type of person who doesn't like to give up on myself. I'm the type of person who doesn't like to quit. I'm the type of person who, when they put their head down, will start marching forward to achieve their goals. And there's not a lot that's going to stop me or get in my way. So I went out that day and I started walking. Well, that walk turned into a 5K run. That 5K run turned into my first 5K race. That 5K race turned into a 10K race. That 10K race turned into a half marathon. And then one day I was running on my treadmill indoors. I had actually bumped into an Ironman triathlete while out for a run a couple months earlier. And he basically inspired me and said, "Boy, if you ever want to do this Ironman thing, your belief system is going to have to change. You're going to have to believe that more is possible for yourself. Every single step you take farther, you're going to have to believe more is possible." So I was living in this rosy world where I thought I had sort of corrected my well-being in my life, but I really knew nothing about running. Even though I've been running for 3 years at this point without taking a day off, running anywhere from 10 to 20 kilometers every day, I was overdoing it. I had no idea I was overdoing it. Yes, you can get too much of a good thing if you don't know how to take it in stride. So here I am as a runner, running every day, and I bump into this Ironman triathlete. And, after meeting with him, I thought, well, good for you. You're an Ironman. I'm not. I went on my merry way. But one day, it was November, about 3 or 4 months later, and the Ironman World Championships were being broadcast on TV. And I'm running on my treadmill. I happen to turn the TV on, and there's the Ironman on TV. And I'm watching the guy run on TV, and I'm thinking, well, he's running, I'm running. How hard can that be? And he rode a bike. I can ride a bike. How hard can that be? And well, he did a little swim. I've never drowned before. How hard can that be? I literally got off my treadmill, sat down at my desk, found the closest Ironman to me, and I signed up for it. I put my money where my mouth was. I set a new goal for myself. And then I called my wife downstairs, and I said, "Hey, come see what I just did." And she looked at the computer screen as I turned it around, and with a little tear in my eye, I said, "I'm going to be an Ironman." And she said, "You're going to be a what?" And I said, "I'm going to be an Ironman." And she says, "You're an idiot, but I believe in you." And, it was a term of endearment because here I was going off and doing something dumb, taking on yet another challenge in my life. But I had become the type of person who did this sort of thing. And it wasn't out of my character at that point to sign up for this race. And those words, "I believe in you," meant so much to me. So from that point on, I went off to start training for doing Ironman Muskoka. So the next part of the journey was going out to learn all about biking and swimming. Now, I didn't own a bike, and I didn't know at this point, I didn't know how to swim. But I was approaching everything the same way I did when I started running. I went to the pool, and the first day in the pool, I thought, I'm going to be an Ironman today. Put my swim cap on, get in the water, start swimming, and all of a sudden I realize, oh my gosh, I don't know how to swim, at least not long distances. And that became just like it was when I started running. I convinced myself if I hadn't put my money where my mouth was, I probably would have quit that day. But I convinced myself if I can just swim one lap of the pool, take a break, swim another lap of the pool, take a break, and start building that up, over time, I would get to where I needed to be. It took about 3 months, coming 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, doing that consistently and showing up every day to do that work. Over 3 months, I was able to swim a 2K distance and without making any stops. And then I moved on to the open water, which was a whole new challenge for me. But at the same time, when I was getting ready to go to the open water because it was getting warmer outside and we could start looking at doing open water swimming, I had ordered my first triathlon bike and it had just arrived because I didn't realize that in triathlon they ride time trial bikes. Didn't know what that was. I thought I could borrow a neighbor's bike and ride that. Turns out people aren't too keen to lend you their high-end bikes. So I had to go invest about $4,000 in a bicycle, which I was not intending on doing. But I did that, got that first bike. I was out for a ride one day, about 2 weeks into having the bike, out in the country, and I was heading towards a two-way stop. And my bike was red. I was wearing a red top. I had a red helmet on, but that didn't matter. I was basically a rolling stop sign. But there was a guy driving a Sunbird. Came to the stop sign. I had the right of way, and he just didn't see me and drove straight into me. And I hit the front of his car, went over his hood, did the best pop-up slide of my baseball career on the other side of the road, stood up and went, oh my God, I just got hit by a car. I went this way, the bike got ejected that way, and the bike had a little dent in it. In the seat stem. So within 2 weeks of having my bike, I'd been hit by a car, and I had another bike coming on the way. So I didn't know how to swim. I got hit by a car, and now I have to get in the open water and deal with panic attacks because for anybody who's ever done any open water swimming, you know that as soon as you go from the pool to open water, that is a whole different ball game, and panic attacks are the first thing that you have to sort of sort out in your brain. Because as you're swimming in open water, you see all kinds of things. You might swim through some debris, get caught up in weeds, and you've got to learn how to calm your body down, calm your brain down, so that you can regulate your breathing, so that you can continue pushing forward. It's not just about the skill of swimming, it's about the mindset in the water and dealing with the unexpected. But after doing all of that training, I was actually ahead of schedule, and there was a local half Ironman distance race, not a half Ironman branded race, but there was a local half Ironman distance race. And I did that one as a kind of training for the full half Ironman that I was doing in Muskoka. And I'm really super happy that I did that race because that was the one and only race my dad ever saw me finish. He had dementia. He was not in a good way at that point in time. And this was one of my releases to deal with his issues, was to prove to myself that I was fit and strong and healthy and not going down kind of the same path he was headed down. So after finishing in Muskoka, the 70.3 Ironman, I crossed the finish line and I realized I had a lot more in me to give. And that's when I signed up for Louisville in 2011. That was a full distance Ironman. And it was kind of one of the closer Ironmans to me. It was within a car's drive away. I could bring my family with me. It just seemed like a logical place to go and do my first Ironman experience. And when I got to Louisville, what I can tell you is the Ohio River was brown, dirty, gross, warm. It was not what I was expecting. And because it was so warm, it wasn't a wetsuit race. I couldn't wear my wetsuit to stay afloat, which meant that I had to be able to swim 4 kilometers without the aid of my wetsuit that was keeping me more buoyant in the water. And at the start of that race, there was a gentleman from Buffalo, same age as me, who went down to that race. And unfortunately, he got in the water about 3 minutes before me. And because he wasn't prepared to do open water swimming the way that most athletes were going to that race, he ended up having a panic attack and dying in the water right beside me. I had no idea that that was happening until after the race was over. So that was a very sad moment, but it's kind of ingrained in my brain because when I was in Chicago on a business trip a couple months earlier, I was down at Navy Pier, and if you've ever been to Chicago, you know where that is. It's the waterfront, and that's where all the triathletes and open water swimmers go in to swim. It's beautiful. But I remember being down there and listening to other triathletes saying, I've got a triathlon coming up, and we thought next weekend, and we thought we'd come in and do some open water swimming to prepare. And I said, what, you haven't been training in the open water? And they went, yeah, no, we're just going to give it on race day. Such a huge mistake. And I just remember all I could think about afterwards was this gentleman passed away in the water from a panic attack, which turned into a heart attack because he hadn't conditioned himself for being in clear water, let alone dirty, murky, brown water. So, that was another mental hurdle that I had to get past after the race. But on race day, after getting out of the water, doing that swim, getting on the bike, I carried all my nutrition with me. I didn't realize that was a mistake. Everything that was with me was warm and gross, and it made me nauseous. It was a very hot, humid day. I was on the bike for 2 hours. I was on the bike for 8 hours, 2 hours longer than I had anticipated being because I was so nauseous on the bike. And then I got onto the run course and made yet another mistake. When I got onto the run course, I remember, doing the first lap of the run course, and I hadn't paid attention. That was the mistake. I hadn't paid attention in the race briefing. I was just taking it all in. And I didn't realize at any point that the run was actually a 2-loop race. I thought it was an out and back. And so when I was coming up to the finish line, I'm thinking to myself, oh man, a marathon's not that hard at all. Yeah, I'm sore, but this was easy. And then there was a guy running beside me. And as I came up to the finishing chute, I just happened to look over my shoulder and he was gone. And there was a volunteer who was at the top of the finishing chute. And I said, hey, there was a guy beside me and he's not here anymore. Where would he have gone? And she laughed at me and said, oh, he probably went for his victory lap. Now, in a lot of the races that I had done, shorter races, they do a victory lap, which is maybe you'll run around the parking lot or run around the block one more time to make up the full distance of the race. So I assumed this is what that was. So I went down the side street and turned right, and before you know it, I'm right back on the start of the race course. And I turned to the guy beside me and I said, another guy beside me, I said, is this a 2-loop race? And he went, yep, it's a full marathon. And that's when it dawned on me I had made a huge mistake, which was I didn't pay close enough attention. Now I'm back on the race course for another 21 kilometers that I was not mentally prepared for. And that's when I decided, I did the math in my head. I decided I was going to quit running. I was just going to walk because I was having a little bit of a pity party. And in that moment in time, I actually slowed down and started walking with another gentleman who was from Canada. And he was walking because he was injured. And after talking to him for about 10 minutes and realizing he's walking because he's injured, I'm walking because I'm feeling sorry for myself, that got my butt in gear. That sort of motivated me again to start moving. So I started running again. And let me tell you, after going that far in an Ironman, that deep into the marathon, to start walking, then decide you're going to start running again, I've never experienced that kind of pain in my body before. My legs were so torn to shreds, and to start running again was awful, especially in the heat and the humidity and the conditions we were running in. But that's all good, because what I learned was that I can do hard things. And in pushing through that pain and that adversity, I was developing the mental toughness and the grit that I needed to keep moving forward. The lesson that I learned was that every now and then you got to pick your head up and pay attention, because if you don't, you're going to mark yourself with that kind of grit and determination right off a proverbial cliff. And when I got to the finish line, I thought for just the briefest of seconds that I was going to be happy. But I remember crossing the finish line and turning around and looking at my time being just under 14 hours. And the immediate thought in my head was not, hey, congratulations, Dave, you're an Ironman. It was, how can I be better? How can I be faster? And I didn't realize it at the time, but here's the moral of the story. In chasing this dream of becoming an Ironman, I thought once I crossed the finish line that I would be happy, that I would be satisfied, and nothing could have been further from the truth. What I found is that happiness isn't in the destination. Happiness is in the joy you feel while striving for your full potential every day. And that's what led me to my second Ironman and my third Ironman, and to continue now training, not to necessarily do Ironmans. I think I've got one more in the bank, and that's when my son or one of his friends that I do half distance Ironmans with, when they're ready to do a full Ironman, I want to be in a position to do at least one more, because it takes a lot out of you to be an Ironman. It's not an easy thing to do. But if you've already got the will, the determination, and you are the type of person who does this sort of thing, it's not out of character. I just don't want to continue to tear my body down as much as I have in the races that I've been doing over the years. So that was my story of becoming an Ironman. That's how I became an Ironman at 45. I went on to do Ironman Cozumel at 47. I went on to do Ironman Mont Tremblant at 50. I'm now 58. I've done a lot of every year I do a half Ironman at least. I don't kind of count those anymore because they're not full Ironmans, but they're really fun because I do those with my son and his friends, the people around me that I've inspired. It's just this big journey of fulfilling my goal, which was my why statement, if you want to call it that, is to be fit and healthy enough to enjoy youthful experiences with my kids as I grow older. That was my dad's dream that he never got to fulfill, and that's the dream that I'm trying to kind of fulfill in his place, because he's not here to do it. I think if he's looking down on me right now, he's probably pretty proud of what he sees. At least that's what I like to believe. So that's my story of becoming an Ironman triathlete. Hopefully that inspires you or creates some curiosity to find out a little bit more about the stories and everything that I've done to get to the point where I am right now. But if you like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. It would mean a great deal to me. And if you've watched this far, thank you very much. I'm very grateful that you spent some time learning about my story. If you've got any questions, leave a comment down below. We're here in a community to all work together, and hopefully that little story inspired you. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day, and we will see you in the next video, probably right here.